that. Can I start now? I start from the starting. Yes. All right, guys. So I once again welcome you to Legacy IAS. I think there was some audio problem. Now that has been resolved. So let's start with our mains analysis. So the mains is going on. Essay GS 1, 2, 3 and 4 have been completed. Right. So in today's lecture, we will be looking at GS paper 3. And specifically in this lecture, we will be dealing with the Indian economy questions. So if you see this year's mains paper, the GS papers, you will see a slight change or a difference in this year's paper with respect to other years. Now what is the difference? Now this year, you are required to know a lot of factual information. Right, in mains generally what happens, whatever factual information you know, you can add on to it, but this time without which you will not be able to answer certain questions. At the same time, the answer writing skill, there is a difference again with respect to the question. They are directly dividing the question into 3-4 parts. So you don't have to do that particular thing now, because they have already said what is this, how this has been done and how far it has been successful. So automatically division in 3 different parts, you don't have to think much, but you are required to know certain factual information without which you will not be able to answer the question. Example, the question on labor code. You need to know what the 4 labor codes are, right? Without which you won't be able to answer the question. So factual knowledge has been given importance. Secondly, a lot of implementation based questions are also there, and that too not direct implementation, rather indirect implementation, not the usual kind of implementation, but a different nuance, or you can say latent kind of implementation. Latent means which is not that obvious. We will see that when we look at question number 2, okay, what I'm talking about. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with respect to the questions. But before that, let me tell you how much weightage was given to Indian economy. So Indian economy consisted of 8 questions. So out of a total of 20 questions, 8 questions are from Indian economy. Now, this amounted to a total of 100 marks. This amounted to a total of approximately 100 marks. There is, yes, around 100 marks, or I should say 90, probably 90 to be exact. 90 marks actually, not 100, very close to 100, 90 marks. Now how this 90 marks was divided? 2 questions were of 15 marks plus 6 questions were of 10 marks. So this is how you get total 90 marks. Question number 1, 2, 3, 4 and question number, in fact 11, 12, 13 and 14. So you have 4 questions of 15 marks and 4 questions of 10 marks. So this actually gives you a total of 100. Yes, so we have a total of 100 marks of economy questions. Now, more important in this is, since I am saying economy questions are of 100 marks, 50 marks have been asked only from agriculture. Only from agriculture. Agriculture is very important. In every lecture I talk about the importance of certain topics. When I teach agriculture, I do mention how important this is, and the rest of the economy consisted of 50 marks. So you can see the importance of agriculture, which was there since the last 4 or 5 years, has still been maintained. Okay, so having said that, let's start with the analysis. Let's look at the first question. The first question says, examine the pattern and trend of public expenditure on social services in the post-reform period. Guys, these words are very important, very important. When you read the question, these words should trigger your mind in the sense that you have to stick with the things that have been happening post-reform period. What is post-reform period? Post-1991. Avoid writing things before 1991. Do not write generically. Be specific with respect to timeline. Okay. So first question is, they are asking you to examine the pattern and trend that has been there with respect to public expenditure on social services. So this is public finance chapter. they have linked it with your human development in India, social sector services. Okay, social services. Second part is to what extent this has been in consonance with achieving the objective of inclusive growth. So a complete link between your public finance and human development in India. This is a part of your syllabus. Inclusive growth term is specifically mentioned. So since it is specifically mentioned and they are directly asking this question is very easy and you should be able to have a lot of content in that. So let's see how to approach this question. First, you have to examine the pattern and the trend of public expenditure on social services in post-reform period. So what has been the pattern? What has been the trend? Right. So initially when there was a start in 1991, see what happens is when you are at your lowest, you try to give doles, freebies, free things as much as you can. Why? Because just imagine the economy is not doing well, the people are not skilled, the people need work, the people need employment, they need money. So will you wait for them to be skilled for the next 6 months or a year? No. You will simultaneously start doing it, which would be a permanent solution, but you need to also give a quick solution or a correction for the immediate basis. So, Manrega is not the first employment guarantee scheme. There were previous Employment Generation Act as well and schemes as well. So you have to talk about that. But later on, as we progress, what has been the trend? The trend now has completely changed in the sense that now we are not just looking for free employment schemes like Manrega, but we are also looking at skill development. So there will be expenditure on skill development. Not just that, now the economy is moving towards not just let's say giving jobs to the employment seekers, but making them employment providers. So you have Startup India, Stand Up India, all those schemes you will mention about. Not just that, there have been a lot of use of technology in order to address the leakages that are there, and the saved money is again reinvested. So we are also looking more and more efficiency in the schemes, at the same time more and more permanent solution to the social sector problem instead of just a temporary quick fix. So that has been the pattern with the help of various schemes. You can mention that. Now coming on to the second part. To what extent this has been in consonance with achieving the objective of inclusive growth? So inclusive growth means the last person standing in the queue should also be getting the benefit, and our schemes should be made in such a way that it has a bottom-up approach, right? So that's how it will be inclusive. Inclusive means any socio-economically backward section of the society because of the caste, gender, anything. Right. So we have to also talk about, let's say for example, here we talked about skill development. I mentioned about Startup India Mission. Now Startup India Mission does have reservation for women. It does have reservation for SC, STs. So you are going to talk about all the schemes, not all of course, a lot of schemes that have come. It does take into account inclusive growth and hence ensures that proper participation of the socio-economically backward section is also there. So generally, majorly, you are going to agree with it because that is actually the case. One sentence of criticism and one solution quickly in 2 sentences you should give, because it is just a 10 marker. You have just 150 words. So majorly in second part, we are going to achieve that to a high extent. It has been. Don't write this exact sentence to a high extent. It has been. You don't have to repeat. By your content, you will showcase how it has ensured inclusive growth. However, you can write one point of criticism where it is still lacking and how to address that, and finish your answer. So that is question number 1, which was, I think, very easy, very straightforward. Now let's come on to question number 2. Now this is the question about which all the legacy IAS students will know very clearly what they want to do. It has been mentioned in my class. Whenever I take RBI's monetary policy or inflation chapter, I have always mentioned that RBI or the Monetary Policy Committee has been given the mandate to regulate or target. They have been given a target of inflation, that is 4 plus minus 2%. 4 plus minus 2%. I hope that's clear. Now the problem here is The MPC can do what? MPC as in MPC in general and RBI in particular can do what? They can just change the repo rate and the reverse repo rate. Right. What is repo rate? Repo rate is the rate at which the banks, scheduled commercial banks borrow money from the RBI. Right. Reverse repo rate is the rate at which these scheduled commercial banks park their additional money with the RBI. So this is with respect to only the rates of borrowing the money and parking the money. So this is just with respect to the bank. Now, when the repo rate increases, the bank will be required to, pay higher interest to RBI to get the money. So loans will become costly. So your personal loan, home loan, this, that, everything will become costly, right? So you would be spending less. So that can address inflation, right? So this is one way to address inflation. But they are asked, but this can address inflation only with respect to money in hand and money you are taking as loan from the banks. What about my salary and other things and other expenditures for which loan is not required to be taken? One beautiful example of that is food. Do I take loans from the bank to eat my food? No. I have that money. Even daily wage laborers, right? Whether you are earning too much or too less, you don't take loan for food from the banks. Now, so because you don't take loan from for food from banks, can RBI play any role in managing the inflation with respect to food? No. In fact, RBI cannot control a huge type of inflation, a huge amount of inflation. For example, the production efficiency of the country has gone down. We are producing less and less. We always say to address inflation in the long run permanently, increase production, increase efficiency so that more production is there, demand supply gap is less. So can RBI take care of that? No. So there are so many things which can cause inflation which RBI cannot take care of. Now, so I tell in my class that basically you have tied RBI's hands, tied in the sense they don't have that tool to take care of it and it is not their role. They are a central bank. They are not going to take care of efficiency of the industry, of the agriculture, of the service sector. That's not their job actually. So basically with just a small tool, right, of policy rates, how can you expect them to control the entire inflation and target it with 4 plus minus 2%? It's not possible. It can be possible, that can happen, we can range it, but involvement of RBI can only be up to a certain limit. There are limitations. So in food, actually it won't help that much. It will still help. How will it still help? When you talk about food, you have big godowns, you can have processing units, so you would be required to take loans for that. So in that way, to some extent it will help. But transportation, logistics, day-to-day requirement, for that loan and all is not being taken. So only to some extent in some sectors with respect to food it can help, right? So this point is rather to, for you to write this particular thing that boss, RBI alone cannot take care of it. There are various other factors. I hope this is absolutely clear. Now let's see the question. Question are, what are the causes of persistent high in food inflation in India? Now this question should have been on the expected lines because the inflation has gone up, and food inflation specifically, right? So what are the causes of persistent high food inflation in India? That is part 1. So you have to simply write the most important reasons. At times, even El Nino, the droughts, all these things could also be the reason. So that would be one thing. Then you can write, for example, the logistics, the storage, cold storage, all this is not there. So because of which wastage is high. Even if you produce 100 and your wastage is 30, so you are left with just 70. Now this wastage is happening due to lack of storage capacity in general and lack of cold storage capacity in particular. So fruits, vegetables, all these things are even worse hit. So because of this, again, the supply is less, demand remains constant also, then also inflation will happen. So all these main points you have to write. And then the second part is comment on the effectiveness of the monetary policy of RBI to control this type of inflation. So it would not be that effective because of the inherent restriction that is there. So you have to mention that. You have to first start by mentioning that this is the way RBI can control. However, it is limited because of this reason which I just explained. So in addition to this, you would require A, B, C thing. Just write in one sentence to ensure that food inflation is maintained at the optimum level. Optimum level, I am saying. You should use terms like this. You should not say that it goes to deflation. No, then the economy will slow down. So you need some amount of inflation. It's good. It is accompanied by increase in employment, etc. But it should not be overshooting. It should not be persistent high. And that too in food, which is a basic necessity. Anyway, let's move ahead. Question 3. What were the factors responsible for the successful implementation of land reforms in some parts of the country? Now, we very well know that the land reforms majorly were a failure. It's as simple as that. But in some parts of the country, they were successful. Why so? Now, to solve this, you need a bit of polity knowledge also. What is that polity knowledge? The land reforms they are talking about. Now, land, state controls land, state subject, so state will have a say on that. So basically what can happen is there may be some central laws, but the implementation has to be by the state. In what form it is implemented, it may be implemented in different forms. So in some states, you should know which states. So in some South Indian states like Tamil Nadu, the then Andhra Pradesh, which is now divided into Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, and presently you should actually write Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. Why? Because do you know that land reforms are still ongoing? It is still ongoing. It is not that it happened after independence and it got over. It is still ongoing, and the government is coming up with different forms of it. Recently, Niti Aayog has come up with a different kind of solution. We'll discuss that also as a part of solution. So some South Indian states and states like West Bengal, there it was to an extent successful as compared to others. Why? Major point was will of the government. Will of the government. Now, how can you see the will of the government? See, the land reforms, when the land reforms came as act, Tenancy Act, Land Ceiling Act, there were loopholes. What were those loopholes? The loopholes were the tenant will be made the owner of the land. So this is good. It was land to the tillers. Whoever is tilling the land should become the owner. So that is good. That is all well and fine. But the problem with that was, okay, the tenant will become the owner of the land only when they are tilling the land for 12 consecutive years. 12 consecutive years. Now, if I am the owner, I know that you as a tiller will become the owner if you till my land for 12 consecutive years. After 10 years, I'll kick you out. I'll get someone else. So this will never be possible only. This is one thing. So understand the reason in order to understand why they were successful here. So now this was the issue, loophole. So there is no government will. You have to come up with better laws in order to ensure that land reforms are successful. Second one was you had a land ceiling. A ceiling clause was there. Now since ceiling clause was there, you can own only up to a certain limit of land. But what do? If you have 10 people in the family, you divide it among 10 people. If you have more land, you give it to your maid, servant, this, that, gardener, so on and so forth. So came the concept of Benami properties. Benami properties. Clear? I hope that is clear. Benami properties. Now this was possible. See, Benami properties are there, but the officers would know and they can be caught. But then along with Benami properties, you add a bit of corruption. Then that gives you a complete formula for failure of land reforms. So that this combination was absent or less in this state because of the strong government will to implement the land reforms. You know, I think the Bhudan Andolan, yes, Bhudan Andolan started at Kochampalli by Acharya Vinoba Bhaveji. He started it, and there people were just giving because Vinoba Bhaveji was just asking them, "Okay, yaar, you have a lot of land. Okay, so is it okay for you to just give someone to the poor who do not have it?" And even that Bhudan Andolan was quite successful. That was also in South India, in Telangana, in Andhra Telangana region. Okay, so there was also the government will in order to ensure that the land is given to the tiller. At the same time, strong implementation ensured that this combination was not formed. So all these reasons led to some amount of success over here is what you have to implement. So what you have to you have to elaborate. So first identify the reasons why it was not successful elsewhere and how these reasons were addressed in South Indian states and West Bengal, etc., in order to ensure that they were successful. Right. However, even in these states, they were not completely successful, and even now this is going on. Even now the reforms are going on, and Niti Aayog has come up with a new formula wherein they are saying, you give us 1 hectare of agricultural land, we will give you 0.25 hectares of land. 0.25 means 1/4 of the land you give us. So whatever the land you give us, we will give you 1/4 of that land in smart city. So this is another attempt for land reforms, which we have to see how successful this becomes. So this you can write it as a solution. Now next, explain the role of millets. Okay, for what? For ensuring health and nutritional security in India. Okay, so the year of millets, millet were in news, the entire year of millet, decade of millet, all that thing is going on. So it is very simple to ensure that you cover millets topic nicely. Now, not to say that every important thing will come, because there will be hundreds of important things, but some of them, but you have to do that. Some of them will come. So millet is one such thing. Now, how can it ensure health and nutritional security? See, understand that food security, when we talk about food security does not only mean being able to produce as much as is required. No. Food security consists of two things. If you are able to produce as much as it is required, that is just physical security or physical excess of food. Physical excess. So, if there are 100 students require, let's say, 1000 kg of rice or 1 ton of rice in a month. Now 1 ton of rice is produced. It will suffice, but some of the students do not have money to buy it. So physical excess is there, but you are still hungry. You still will not have the food. So along with it comes economic excess. So both should be provided, only then food security would be ensured. But are they talking about food security? Do not just restrict yourself to this. Do not talk about this. They are talking about nutritional security. Why they are talking about nutritional security? Because food security to an extent we have achieved. How have we achieved? Green revolution helped us, produce more and more. Now we are producing a good amount. At the same time, we have our National Food Security Act, with the help of which 66% of Indians get cheap food grains. In fact, this year's budget talks about over 81 crore people have been benefited with the National Food Security Act. So food security to an extent has been taken care of. So our next logical target would be what? Nutritional security. So what is the difference between food security and nutritional security? Let us understand. So when you talk about food security, it is simply you require 2400 calories. You are able to get 2400 calories. This is food security. Simple. End of story. Now you can eat entire rice, entire wheat, just these two, and get this new food security. But nutritional security is, where does this 2400 calorie come from? And not just that, does it have proper amount of fat, proteins, okay, carbs, carbohydrates, not just that, other nutrients, micronutrients, right, vitamins. Now once these things are also addressed, then you can say the country does not only have food security but nutritional security, or yeah, what's the word they've used? Nutritional security. Okay, only then you can say that. I hope that's absolutely clear. Okay, now how is millet going to help? See, millet is going to help health and nutrition. So when you are having proper nutritional diet, health is also going to be proper, so we can club this, but make sure we are writing more and more points. So how will millet helps? See, when it comes to millets, basically you should know the advantages of millets. It is as simple as that. So you should know the factual data about millets. If you don't, it becomes difficult. So let's see certain factual data of millets. See, first of all, if you just stick with nutrition and all, it has various vitamins in it, especially vitamin B. It is gluten free, right? Wheat consists of gluten, which can cause health problems, so direct health related point is there. It has more or fiber, easy to digest, better digestion, again health and nutrition. So this is clearly nutritional point, this is health point, this is also health point, right? At the same time, it is cheaper, so easy physical access as well as economic access. It can be grown in drought prone areas as well. It's a drought prone crop, so rainfall and all that, less rainfall, drought prone regions would not affect, and the amount will still be there, so it will be a better help for health and nutrition. Also majorly focus on this health and nutritional points. Okay, so this benefits you should know of millets as compared to other food grains, that is rice and wheat, and that is how it can help you in health and nutritional security. So it's sort of a factual question. That means you need to know about millets. Okay, now question number 1, 2, 3 and 4 we have seen. Now these questions are of science and tech, environment, etc. So that will be covered in different lecture. We will stick with the economy questions. So the next economy question is question 11th. Next economic question is question 11th. Now question 11th asks about discuss the merits and demerits of the labor codes in the context of labor market reforms in India. So now this is the question that I was talking about, wherein you should actually know, boss, what are these labor codes? What 4 labor codes are there? What provisions were there? How they were having certain positive things and certain negative things. So this becomes a highly factual question. I hope that's absolutely clear. So that's the first part. We'll see what it is. What has been the progress so far in this regard? Progress so far as in, has it been implemented? Because when you talk about labor, labor is in the concurrent list. So how far it has been implemented, you have to mention that. So let us see what are the, see basically first things first, there are 4 labor codes. Okay, so you should know what are those 4 labor codes. So those 4 labor codes are labor code on wages, labor code on industrial relations, labor code on social security, and labor code on occupational health safety. So these are occupational health safety. So these are your basically 4 labor codes. Now you should know what provisions they have been brought in them and how they are beneficial or not. So of course certain provisions have been beneficial, there is absolutely no doubt about it. Now what are these? For example, in the wage, there have been a floor wage which has been set, and you cannot give wages below the floor wage. So the concept of minimum wage is there. And not just that, this minimum wage is going to be set differently for different jobs depending upon the difficulty of the job and the skill level that is required in the job. So these are good things that are happening, but there are certain issues as well. What are the issues with respect to industrial relations? Now to conduct a strike, they have made it difficult. How they have made it difficult? Now the code asks that if you want to conduct, see how does strike happen? You know, in movies you would have seen, they dramatize anyhow, but still Let's understand. If something unforeseen thing happened and the company could not provide for some safety thing, this, that, accident happens, so the people may go on strike, right? But this code says that you have to give a 60-day notice period to conduct a strike. Now imagine some unforeseen thing happens, unfortunate thing happens, and the leader of the union has to give a 60-day notice period. Now in that 60-day notice period, whoever is going to take part, or you get to know who all are involved, you may replace those labors, right? The intensity or intention to strike may draw down. So basically sort of it is trying to suppress the strikes that that probably you can say is required to ensure that the rights are being properly implemented. Okay, of course the strike should not go to the extent that it leads to violence, breakage, this, that, but at the same time the right to peacefully strike, peacefully down the tools and not work. We're talking about strike, we are not talking about violence over here, we are talking about strike. So peacefully put down your tools, do not work till the time this problem is resolved. But then you are required to give 30-day notice period. That's point number one. You cannot do strike when the matter is sub judice in a tribunal. Chalo, that is fine, we can understand that. But another thing is, after the decision by the tribunal is taken, again for the next 60 days you cannot strike. So this is the long gap which is there, which would sort of suppress the strike that is required. Right, so these are the negative things which are involved, which needs to be addressed. So what solutions can you provide should also be mentioned over here. You can mention about what you can do is, instead of having a blanket thing of 60-day notice period, it could be this for certain things. Let's say for example, if it is about increment, promotion, salary, okay, fine, that's fine. But then there can be certain things about health risk, safety risk, this, that, because of which also people can strike. So for that, waiting for 60 days could, endanger more lives as well. So strike basically presses the owners to take immediate actions. So for increment of salary and all, maybe you can wait, for example, and if you know I want increment of salary, 2 months later, before that only you can talk about striking because it has not been increased in so long. So those kind of things, fine. But things which is about health, safety, security, probably that thing may not be required to have this. So don't directly write that this is how it should be mentioned, because this has come as a code. So mention that this particular solution can be thought of. In that way you mention and complete your answer. I hope that is absolutely clear. Moving on to the next one. What is the need for expanding the regional air connectivity in India? In this context, discuss the government's UDAN scheme and its achievement. So there are three parts. The first part is, boss, what is the need for expanding regional air connectivity? One thing. Second part has two subparts. Second is, in this context, discuss the government's UDAN scheme. So you have to discuss that, mention about the provision and the achievements. You should know. Again, it's factual. You should know some of the achievements. So whatever are the flagship schemes, you should know their achievements generally. I'm not asking about no exact names and data of the airports, but at least know that more than 60 underserved and unserved regions have been connected, more than 50 airports have been connected, etc. This kind of data you should know. So let's understand how to address this question. What is the need for expanding regional air connectivity? So talk about connectivity is going to increase the trade, tourism, investment, this, that, right? 4 or 5 important things. In this context, discuss government's UDAN scheme. So talk about the UDAN scheme. When the flight time is less than 45 minutes, so under 2,500 rupees, all those, whatever the provision are there, it is mentioned that for the unserved, underserved areas. Then when you talk about achievement, talk about more than 60, 68 to be exact, but if you may not remember it, you can talk about more than 65 or more than 60 connections have already been made, more than 50 airport strips have been connected. So mention these achievements also and conclude with a future aspirational tone. So this is very straightforward, very, very factual. Okay. The first point you can easily write what benefits it will lead to. But the second point, what are the provisions and the achievement, is very factual. Either you know it or you don't know it. but being an important flagship scheme, you should know it. Next is, what are the major challenges faced by Indian irrigation system in recent times? Now in agriculture chapter, we talk a lot about irrigation system in general and micro irrigation in particular. So let's see, the question has again come. What are the major challenges faced by Indian irrigation system, not micro irrigation system, Indian irrigation system? State the measures taken by the government for efficient irrigation management. So the moment you see measures taken by the government, you can talk about the answers with respect to the schemes that the government has brought in. Okay, so let's see how to address this. What are the major challenges? What are the major challenges for irrigation system in India? The very first, the hierarchy of points is also very important. The first thing, you should not write lack of capital. No, the lack of capital is applicable in every kind of thing. If you ask why this has not happened, lack of capital. Why this has not happened, lack of capital. What is the challenge? Corruption. Those points are applicable everywhere. So start with the points that are specific, that are most important for that particular question. So what would be the most important thing? Irrigation system. The main problem the irrigation system is facing is the depletion of groundwater table. Once there is no water only in the ground, what will you do if you put the irrigation system over there? It's not taking up water only, right? That is a problem. Now, when that is the problem, you have to dig deeper. When you dig deeper, what happens? Arsenic contamination, lead contamination, all those things are happening. So the first and very most important point is depletion of groundwater table. Second is, you can write toxicity, contamination at a deeper level, because you have to dig deep, because the groundwater table is getting lower and lower. So you talk about the toxicity, and also how can you use the irrigation system when your food itself is becoming toxic and people are having health issues and no one is buying your product, right? So toxicity and all that is also there. Basically, soil would get contaminated, because of which the food gets contaminated, right? Of course, there will be an initial capital investment is required. When that is required, only the large farmers can do it. The small marginal farmers will not be able to do it. At the same time, economy of scale would not be there, or let's say it may not be economical for small and marginal farmers. And majority of the major number of farmers are small and marginal. You have 1 hectare of land. You have to completely get the irrigation system, the pipes and everything laid. So it's not going to help you much profitably wise or financial sense. So if it is a big farm, then you can invest also some capital, and you would require also some capital, right? So all these things and others you can mention about the challenges that is being faced. Now, what steps that the government has done? So directly start with Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program, AIBP. Talk about this concept of Har Khet Ko Pani, right? Talk about more crop per drop. Now this is also about irrigation, but specifically micro irrigation, right? So with the help of this scheme, you can ensure that you are not just writing your points on your own, but you take the help of the schemes. Everyone is happy, you are going to get good marks, and then conclude your answer. I hope that's absolutely clear. Coming on to the final question from economics. Now again, buffer stock, which has been discussed in the class, which of course gets discussed. It's important. It's a main part of your agriculture and food management chapter, main part of the food management part of agriculture. So elucidate the importance of buffer stocks. Buffer stocks, specifically they are asking for one thing: stabilizing agricultural prices in India. And what are the challenges associated with the storage of buffer stock? So restrict yourself to storage, restrict yourself to stabilizing agriculture prices. Do not overdo it. Do not talk about other things. Just restrict your answers to this. Okay. So first things first, talk about buffer stock and how it can stabilize agricultural prices. See, what is the intention of a buffer stock? Intention of the buffer stock is stabilization of prices. If there is, so how do you stabilize the prices? If the production falls down, that means supply has gone down. Assuming demand remains constant. So what will happen? There will be a demand and supply gap. Now this demand and supply gap, when there is demand and supply gap, what will happen to the prices? The prices will go up, right? So what you will do? You will stabilize the prices. I hope that's clear, right? There is another use of buffer stock. They are talking about stabilizing prices. So generally stabilizing prices majorly talks about when prices are going up, what do? You have buffer stock, bring it in the market. So more food grains in the market, because of which prices will come down. I hope this is clear. This is the concept of your buffer stock. Now, what are the challenges associated with the storage of buffer stock? So the storage of buffer stock, lack of storage go downs. Now, not just that, in general, at the same time, for certain things, when you require cold storage, that is also problematic. You do not have cold storage system. So you can probably, if you are having, the country is having a buffer of food grains, fine, to an extent that you can store. But what about, we are talking about nutritional security, so vegetables, fruits and other things, pulses and all also needs to be stored. Especially fruits and vegetables, cold storage is required. For other things also, proper go downs are required. At the same time, see, go downs need to follow certain rules. See, if you have a go down of this much area, for example, you cannot build it so high and stack it one above the other. It is going to lead to a collapse of that. It is going to lead to wastages of that. So again, storing would lead to more wastage only. So it needs to be stored in a scientifically technical manner and not dump like anything just because of lack of the place. Okay, so go downs are an issue, cold storage is an issue, right? With respect to storage of buffer stock, at the same time, when storage is happening, it is being rotting. You have to follow certain process. I have mentioned in my class also, that is, you do mention in your answer, that is going to fetch you the extra marks, that is FIFO. Follow first in, first out. Now this is mentioned in my class that I have taken, and this is going to get you the extra marks. This was not mentioned in the books, not you don't study generally, but somehow it came to in my mind that since we are talking about food storage, food wastages, this should be followed. This means what? The one food grain came on 1st August. One food grain came on 1st September. So now today is, let's say, December, 1st December. Now if you are supplying some food grains, this food grain should be taken out first. First in, first out. This came in first, so this should go out first, which will ensure the shelf life is proper. If you sell this off, then this is already 1 month older, so the amount of shelf life is lower. So this kind of thing also needs to be followed in the storage go downs. This is an additional solution you can talk about to ensure more and more shelf life of the storage of the food grains that we are storing. Okay, so this was your economics paper. Total 100 marks, 8 questions, 4 of 10 marks, 4 of 15 marks. The questions were easy except for a couple of questions wherein you required complete factual information. Other questions were very simple in the sense that you don't have to think much because UPSC is very direct. What is this? Why is this? How is this? What has it done? End of story. You don't even have to think about it. Right. So this was the pattern of the economics paper. I hope all of you who has written it has done well. If any further questions or queries are there, you can mention it in the comments section. At the same time, I wish all those people who would be appearing next time all the very best and take a lot of learning from these question paper series which we are coming up with. So thank you so much, guys.